All right, I am so pleased that today we are having some of our statewide candidates here. We have Dr. Terri Ruiz, who is for Superintendent of Public Instruction. She will replace Tom Horn. I even got in, I do not understand, but he did, and he's there, and we're going to get rid of him. Yeah. And then we have Nick Mansour, who is running for Arizona State Treasurer. We will be joined, I hope, Clara Pratte, who is running for the Arizona Corporation Commission, along with Jonathon Hill. You may recognize Jonathon. He's up there. Hi, Jonathon. Hi, Peggy. You may recognize Jonathon because he has been here quite a few times. He was at our last candidate picnic, and he's terrific. And so 2 candidates for the Corporation Commission. Anybody who would like to help with the campaign for the Corporation Commission, Jeff Brame is sitting back here, and he's sort of our point person for all things Corporation Commission, because we need to focus. So first, I would love to introduce Dr. Ruiz, and then we'll have Nick Mansour speak to us. So welcome.
All right. Well, morning, first of all, and thank you so much for having us here today. I love when Nick and I get to speak together, because the 2 offices really go hand in hand. And so we do well tag teaming each other. So my name is Terri Ruiz. I am a career educator. Let me see the hands. Where are the educators in the house? There we are. Thank you so much, first of all, for serving our students and helping to lift our community. That's what I did for 35 years. I taught math for 25 of those across all grade levels, middle school, high school, and at the college. And I retired as the president of Glendale Community College. GCC is one of the largest community colleges in Arizona. And we think about the power and the promise of public education. You know, I'm a very humble beginnings from South Phoenix, first generation college student, and public education paved that way for me to become a math teacher and eventually become a president. That's why I'm running. I'm running to protect that same pathway for the 1 million students across Arizona. This is a serious race, and only serious candidates should be in it. I am the only certified teacher in this race. That says it all, right? Actually, over the course of Arizona's history, there's only ever been 3 educators in this important role. And that everyone else has just been career politicians. And we're seeing that play out right now with Tom Horn, with Kimberly Yee. This is just a stepping stone. They're just career politicians, have never been inside of a classroom outside of a photo op. And I actually said that. We were at the Yavapai County Candidate, Yavapai Farm Bureau Candidate Forum. That's a mouthful. Have you ever been?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Daddy was there. Well, it's a very conservative part of Arizona. But it was an opportunity to be on the stage and have a forum with both Tom Horn and Kimberly Yee. And there I was sandwiched right in between 2 of them. And they revert right back to the same old nonsense that they always do. Attacks on our students, lies about our education system, just really out of date policy and perspectives. And I actually said, you've never been inside of a classroom outside of a photo opportunity. And I'll continue to say that because they're not career educators. And because this is so serious and public education is under attack. And as we travel the state, we've gone to all 15 counties. Our campaign has been everywhere. And if you're not following us, I encourage you to sign up for our newsletters. Follow us on social media, and you can see where we've been and where we are going. And you can imagine the number 1 concern, no matter where we are in Arizona, has to do with the empowerment scholarship account vouchers. There's a lot of anger. Communities are seeing their schools closed. And when you close a school, especially in a small rural community, the devastating impact that has, because the community it's the glue. The school is the glue for the community. And so parents are concerned, families are concerned, And they really want leaders who will focus on our students, not on this hateful culture wars and politics. And that's exactly why I'm running. Arizona deserves a leader focused on our students. That's what I've done for 35 years. So what I'll continue to do. This is not a stepping stone for me. This really is a culmination and a continuation. It's 35 years of service to our students and community. And, you know, it's an honor to be here, and thank you to DORR for this amazing endorsements and opportunity. Together we'll do this. So here's some really exciting news. So what can I do about those ESAs? Let me talk about that for a second. The superintendent cannot change the law about the ESAs, but I can create procedures and practices that would protect our taxpayer dollars. So right now, Tom Horn is choosing to automatically approve any voucher expense under $2,000. Unchecked, unchallenged, just approved and money goes out the door. And in 1 year's time, over $500 million has gone out the door. And he says he's going to audit it later.
Yeah.
He's going to claw back that money. There's a quote, claw it back. Well, we know that's not going to happen. And it's ridiculous in this day and age that there's not an automated system already in place. Well, systems exist. We would create or find that system and implement it and stop that wasteful abuse of our taxpayer dollars. Any dollar not spent on an educational need is a wasted dollar, in our opinion. Public dollars really didn't belong in the public schools. This is out of the control of the superintendent of public instruction, but I can create procedures that will protect our resources and be very transparent. As a community college president, I was responsible for a budget multiple times larger than Arizona Department of Education, managed a staff multiple times bigger than the Arizona Department of Education. So I know how to do this big work. We'd be transparent, making sure that you know where your taxpayer dollars are going, and be transparent with also where are these children? Where are they going? How many are leaving the system? Are they coming back in? Like, nobody seems to really know what's happening. And I feel like as an educator, we have a responsibility to educate our children. Related to that, organizations and institutions and people who accept ESA vouchers do not have to assess students. Do not have to have, there's no transparency. We don't know who's teaching our children, and we don't know if our children are safe. And that should be very concerning for all of us as Arizonans when we think about our children as a future. But I know that together we can make a difference. We have had more individual donors than both Tom Horn and Kimberly Yee combined. That's people power, because these are career politicians. And yet we have shown that, a career educator who's never run for office can gather people together. And this is the work of our campaign team as we travel the state, and individuals hosting events with the press, and just being able and willing to come out and speak to me and gaining people's trust. Let's protect public education. It's a power and promise that gave so many of us our start. Let's do this together. Honor to be here. Honor to answer any questions. But thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from, sorry.
One question,
Yeah.
future ads, because we're seeing Tom Horn ads, the old ones. I mean, this was from the previous election, constantly on the news. that you see.
Yeah.
So what's the plan to counteract and bring light to your?
So he's spending $10 million of our taxpayer resources. He was given $10 million to promote the ESAs and the privatization of public education. So he's regenerated those. That's a lot of money to have a TV ad. I don't know that we'll be able to raise that kind of money, but so we're going to do it more of a grassroots effort, social media, word of mouth. We'll have some, we have lots of yard signs if anybody's interested in a yard sign. And we'll probably have some street signs later on in the future. But, it's unfortunate. It's our taxpayer money. I'm gonna say that was a good
Yeah,
question.
Okay, after Kim, then we're gonna hold questions and then we'll ask them at the end and see if others are, but Kim, why don't you go?
Just where the petitions stand for SOS.
So my understanding that the Protect Education Initiative, great news, they have the number of signatures that are needed to make sure it is on the ballot. Fabulous. So volunteers all over Arizona are continuing to collect, and they have about another week and a half or so to get those turned in. It was a blowout. We know Arizonans don't want this 2-1. There is a sneaky bill working its way through that's going to be on the ballot as well. We could talk more about that given some time. Okay.
There's a lot of sneaky stuff that's gonna be on our ballot, unfortunately, which is, we need to keep showing up and educating ourselves on these things. Thank you so much. And if you have more questions, we will answer them later. First, we will hear from Nick Mansour, candidate for state treasurer.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan, for arranging this. Thank you guys for having me today. And yes, the three of us and Jonathon Hill see each other quite a bit. And we are like family at this point. So I'm gonna, I don't know if Sedona considers itself a rural community or not.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. All right. So a week ago, I was in Maricopa, the town. What's that?
Hi, Andrea.
And we will
Hi.
see you at
Oh,
some
yeah.
council.
Okay, I was in Maricopa, the town, Tuesday. I was in Lake Havasu and the Parker area, and fortunately, there was an accident, so we had to go around through Kingman. So I came through Kingman yesterday. We were in Clifton and Safford. And on the way there, we actually went through Superior, which is where my dad grew up. My grandfather came to the Clifton area, which I remember being to before. Anyways, my point is rural areas. I grew up in Tucson, but places outside of Tucson and Phoenix are very important to me. I've got a lot of roots there, and my mom actually grew up on a farm, not in Arizona. But so I care deeply about what happens in our state outside of Tucson and Phoenix. I care about Tucson and Phoenix too. Who knows who's recording this? Anyway. I want to start with a quick story that has played a big role in my deciding to run for the treasurer's office. When I was 40, I was diagnosed with a tumor, and it was the size of a golf ball, and it was right in between my ears. Now, there is a long-running joke in my family. I've got an older brother and 2 sisters, and the butt of the joke is the size of my head. They weren't concerned about this, but the doctors didn't see it that way, and I was soon scheduled for what ended up being a 10-hour surgery. And many people have health scares like this, and for me, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was given a chance to evaluate my life at that point in time. We have 4 kids. At that time, they were 10 and under, and helping people is really important to me. And I came to the realization that at age 40, I hadn't done enough of that, and I don't want to get to 80 and feel the same. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 30 years. And about a year after that surgery, I joined a school called the Arizona College of Nursing. The time that I joined, there were no nurses. It wasn't called Arizona College of Nursing. It was one campus. It was 450 students. And I was chairman and CEO there. And over a 14-year period, we grew it to 21 campuses, 7,500 students. 95% of those are nurses. And if any of you are nurses, or you know people in the healthcare profession, nursing is an amazing career. More meaningful than the growth was helping people become a nurse, transforming their lives, and through them, improving healthcare in Arizona and several other states. But I've decided it's time for me to serve Arizona a different way. I'm running for the office of treasurer to make Arizona the best place to work, to live, and to raise a family. I love Arizona. Arizona's been great to me and my family. We live in a great state. You know, driving in these rural areas yesterday, Tracy and I were talking about just how beautiful the state is. And of course, you're in Sedona, so you don't need me to tell you that. But like every state, we have issues that need to be addressed. And I have 3 priorities. And the first is to improve our education.
Yes.
I'm sure you know we are ranked towards the bottom of the 50 states, whether it's 48th or 49th, or one of my opponents actually corrected me and told me it was 45th. I think she missed the And in a meeting like this, somebody told me that's not actually true if you include Guam and Puerto Rico and we're ranked 53rd, okay? We are getting what we pay for because we are at the very bottom of how we fund on a per pupil basis. 48th or 49th, or some years for sure, dead last. And I grew up in a middle-class family. My parents really stressed education. I had a number of great teachers and great schools. Now, I would not have the privilege of doing what I'm doing today without those. And at Arizona College of Nursing, not only is nursing a very meaningful career, but our graduates earn 2.5 to 3 times more the day they start as a nurse than the day they started at our school. And that can have a huge impact on them and their family immediately and for generations. So education is a key, we all know this, to a better place in life. Arizonans are concerned about our economy. They're concerned about their future. They're concerned about the cost of living. Education is one way to address that. And we are blessed in this state. We have an endowment fund for the benefit of education. It is a $10 billion fund. There are 10 other states that have a fund like this. Our treasurer oversees this fund. None of the other 10 states invest their money the same way we invest our money. They are doing a better job. And if we did something like what they would do, last year we would have made $200 million more 1 year alone. In the last dozen years, we would have made $3 billion more. It would be a $13 billion fund today. Actually, probably closer to $14 billion. That's tax-free money, primarily for the benefit of education, primarily K through 12. Nobody would have to pay a thing. It's been 28 years since we have changed how this fund is invested, and it's time for us to update the fund. My second priority is to attract good companies and good jobs. I've been an entrepreneur at Arizona College of Nursing. We created thousands of jobs. I want to use my background in this office to work with state agencies to create opportunities for all Arizonans in the form of better companies, better jobs. And last but not least, I want to eliminate waste. And you're going to get a double dose of hearing about the ESAs today, because our voucher program for the homeschool portion is an area where the treasurer can have an impact. As you know, many of you probably know, if you don't know, prepare to be a little alarmed. We are reimbursing people for things like trips to SeaWorld, kitchen appliances, jewelry, $1 million worth of Legos last year, $1 million worth of trampoline park memberships, and lingerie, you know, and some other things. So Tom Horn is doing a horrible job at this. I'm shocked to learn that he is not a certified teacher. He's doing a horrible job at this. And the good news is we're going to elect Dr. Ruiz.
Yes.
I won't have to do anything, but I actually believe the treasurer can and should be doing more today. First of all, she could be releasing the information. Instead, she is fighting a freedom of information request. We spent, I think, $120,000 at this point, keeping information from us. She could be auditing and telling Tom, what about this? Maybe we should improve this. And for God's sake, if Tom still wants to pay, I believe, as the chief financial officer, if she knows there's waste, she has an obligation not to pay that money. So those are things that she could be doing, and I won't need to do those. But so those are the 3 priorities. And I will say there is a 4th reason I'm running. And I am running because we have got to start bringing our community back together again. I am not a politician. I've never run for public office before. I'm a problem solver. And we need to elect more people who are going to focus on the real issues, like the people here, and come up with solutions and put those in place. And it is just literally insane to me to hear today that you're saying it's difficult to be on a local city council meeting because of where we are as a country. And you know this, that's not alone in Sedona. You know, you should read about Scottsdale and all the things they have going on there.
We do.
You do, yeah. So, you know, we've got to make a change. That's the clear thing. Now, in my race, there is a very, very clear contrast. There are actually two candidates in my race. The one we think is more likely to win, his name is Elijah Norton. If you're very politically involved, pay attention a lot around the state, you may recognize his name. 4 years ago, he ran in a primary against David Schweikert. He lost. He ran to the right of David Schweikert. Okay, that should say something. Is that possible? Is a common reaction. He is MAGA. He was until recently the treasurer of the state Republican Party. He brags about helping get Trump elected, and he wants to inject far right policies into how we manage our money. That's one thing you should know. The second thing you should know is he touts his business record. He's an entrepreneur like me. He has founded a few used car warranty companies. Yeah. I never knew anything about this industry until I got into this. And this is a common reaction. And his company has literally hundreds of complaints online. We have found over 100 lawsuits between him and his customers. So this is not the type of person we want managing our money. And I'll say one last thing. Even the Republicans don't really want him. Okay? Kimberly Yee spent 8 months trying to find somebody to run against Ruiz. He has very few endorsements. He claims he doesn't list his endorsements because he's running on his own record. But that's just BS. I've got 100 business leaders who've endorsed me from around the state. The Arizona Bankers Association is supporting our candidacy. I'm talking about these things. He's got very few endorsements. So that's one candidate. The other candidate that I don't talk much about, but I'll just say briefly, her name is Catherine Haley. She's the president of the State Board of Education. She is president of the board overseeing Tom Horn and everything going on there. So they've done virtually nothing. So that's who we have if Elijah doesn't win. Now, the good news is I feel very, very confident about our campaign. The reasons I'm running, people matter to people care about. I'm getting a lot of support. As I said, we've raised a lot of money already. We're going to keep raising more. I've got a great team. We're getting all over the state. Having said this, it's still Arizona. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be close. You know, Chris Mays has dubbed herself landslide Chris Mays for by 280 votes, right? Which means everything we're doing matters. Everything you guys do matters. And that's the great thing about Arizona is our vote here really, really matters. And where we need the help is exactly where Ellen started. You know, people are going to pay attention to the governor and Chris Mays and Adrian Fontes. Thank God. And it's the rest of us down here. We need people to just keep following down the line. So your efforts really matter. If you are willing to take yard signs, I know we all have those here. If you're willing to donate your time or money, for sure we need that. And I think for some of these down ballot races, and for sure the treasurer's race, most people don't think about them enough. And they can have a huge impact on our economy and on our education and on our utility rates. So we need your help. And if you do that, we're going to win. Actually, I would say this is the year. This is literally the year. I don't usually say this. It's been 60 years since we've had a Democrat in the treasurer's office. It's been 60 years since we've controlled both houses in the legislature. I'll let them talk about how long it's been since the corporate commission has been Democratic controlled. We have a great guy who's running for mine inspector. It's been 50 years since we've had a Democratic mine inspector. This is the year. This is absolutely the year, but we need your help. And if you do that, we're going to make Arizona the best place to live, work, and to raise a family. So thank you very much.
Next, we're going to hear from Jonathon Hill, who is candidate for the Corporation Commission. And of all the offices in the state, this is the one that is least understood. People don't understand what it means. They should change the name. because it's really, really an important position. So can we spotlight Jonathon, and after that, we'll hear from Clara. They're running together for 2 seats on the Corporation Commission.
Hi, Ellen. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine.
Okay, hopefully my video's coming through. It's kind of frozen up on my end, but I think that's just my computer. So,
You're not spotlighted, but I see Jenny's working on it. But that's okay. We can see you. So why
Okay.
don't you proceed?
He is spotlighted, so I'm not sure why he's not showing.
Well, he's showing, but he's just one of the little dots.
You can only spotlight 2 at a time.
Okay.
Okay, I'll keep working on it.
Okay. Okay, better. We're still
Okay.
spotlighting 2 others.
Good.
Okay, Jonathon, why don't you go?
okay. Well,
Oh,
thank you everyone for having us to be there in person. Missing out on the whole party there. Yeah, so myself are running for
Yeah.
the commission. But it really is so important to everyone's day-to-day lives. It affects 1 times a month, regulates your utility prices. That
Hold on, Jonathon.
Sometimes turning video off helps
Yeah.
lessen the stutter.
Yeah. Jenny, if you can take your, up on the upper right, it just says speaker. In that little thing of squares, it says gallery view, speaker view.
It's on speaker view.
It's on speaker view.
It's on speaker view and he is spotlighted. I think it might be a video issue, an internet issue at his end. He looks.
Okay.
Jonathon might need to turn off his video.
Jonathon, yeah, why don't you try to turn off your video, and maybe that will help.
Not his video, the incoming stream.
Okay, Jonathon, are you speaking now? Okay. Why don't we give Jenny a little time? In the meantime, we'll let Clara speak. I'm sorry, Jonathon, if you can hear me. We will get back to you after Clara introduces herself and tells what the Corporation Commission does.
Sure.
So why don't you do
Well,
that?
and I've got Jonathon's spiel down pretty good.
Sure.
He's done it for me. But thank you all so much for being here today on this Juneteenth day. I guess a holiday, so we got a good turnout, right? This is great. I think I traveled the closest and I was the latest. I'm just up the hill in Flagstaff, but my name is Clara Pratte. I'm running for the Corporation Commission. I've talked to some of you before, and Jonathon ran 2 years ago, so you may remember him as well. But the Corporation Commission in other states, it's usually called the Public Utilities Commission. Yes, and it makes much more sense. And I think that's why we got a lot of ballot drop off. And Jonathon likes to share a very sad statistic. If everybody who voted for Kamala Harris and Ruben Gallego just went down the ballot, we would have 3 seats on the Corporation Commission as specified.
Wow.
And instead, we've got a 5-member body, all Republican controlled, and they have not met a rate increase that they haven't liked. And we have all paid the price, quite literally, for that. I've spent my career in public service, and I'm born and raised in Arizona, as we natives like to say, since time immemorial. We're not going anywhere. We've been here since before it was a state, so we're going to be here. But yes, so I was born and raised on the Navajo Nation, and I did not have access to utilities and no running water, no electricity. We got running water when I was in middle school. Reverse. Electricity in middle school, running water when I was already away at U of A for college. So I really spent my entire career working on public access, infrastructure. Most recently, I was on Biden's infrastructure advisory team. So that was kind of a volunteer quasi cool position. It just means you get to spend your own money to go back and forth to DC and get that for free. But you get to stay cool. Right? But yeah, so I got to do that, and it was really startling to me to see how piecemeal and patchwork our entire utilities system is across the United States. So I'm hyper focused on what we're facing here in Arizona specifically. I've worked for my tribe. I've worked for the feds. I've been a political appointee. I've been a career service person. I've been, for the last 13 years, focused on growing my company and as an entrepreneur. But one of the primary things we do is we connect off-grid houses on the reservation to electricity that have never had electricity for the first time ever, you know. So it's super important work. It's super fulfilling. But I've decided that I wanted to expand my scope to helping Arizona as a state. And when I moved home in 2018, my oldest son was 6 months old, and I wanted to be close to my family. I wanted to raise them in the state that I was raised in. I wouldn't consider Flagstaff rural, especially compared to where I grew up, where I think our last census said we had 75 people, which is not true. Just people don't like to answer questions to the government. So it's got about 500. So 400 is a change, close that door, and didn't answer the census. But, you know, I really love being part of this state. I love being part of the community. I love public service. And I'm really running on 3 primary ideas. One is affordability. We are in an affordability crisis. We all know that. We all know our grocery carts aren't as full as they were a year or 2 ago. Transparency, like my colleagues up here, we're all battling this transparency issue in the specific realms that we're in. We've got a treasurer that won't release public records of our public dollars. We've got ESA superintendents who won't tell us how our money's being spent and why, and this green line. And full disclosure, I'm an ESA mom. My kids go to a Catholic school. They use the ESA program. I have personally used that system. I could put anything in there. And you know what? There's zero accountability, zero transparency. Yeah. So even for people who support vouchers, we don't support what's going on. So we're combating transparency. It's the same with the Corporation Commission. Right now, there is not one member on that commission that asks utilities what they are asking for the rate increase for. And that is very critical. If a utility comes to the commission, it's the commission that says yes or no on whether the rates go up because they're monopolies. The commission was made to protect us against monopolies. Well, they're not asking, hey, release to the public why we're raising utility rates. But what we see is record profits for these public utilities and amazing bonuses for their top leadership. I'm not opposed to capitalism. I think people who work hard should get paid. But when you have a public utility and your top person is bought and paid for by investors and they've got $6 million bonuses, where do you think their heart is lying? It's not for us. And that's where the Corporation Commission ought to be stepping in, ought to be asking these questions. Since I moved home in 2018, my utility bill has gone up 40%. The average is between 35 and 40% in our state if you're an APS customer. If you're TEP, it's slightly lower at 32%. Now, if you compare it to other states in the jurisdictional area, like if you look at Nevada or Colorado, 1-2% increase, maybe 5%, and here we are sitting with 35 and 40. Many people have moved to our state because it is an affordable or was an affordable place to retire, to raise a family, to work in education, and that's just not the case anymore. So affordability is number one. Second is this transparency issue, like I mentioned. And we also have a Corporation Commission that doesn't release these records on what they're spending the money on. But what's also interesting is that the 2 incumbents that are running again, and we've got a third far right turning point candidate that's also running, but the 2 incumbents are really, really excited about formula-based rate making. What that does is that puts the power back in the utilities. They pass one time, yes, we will do formula. They've already been piloting it in certain parts of the state where the utility does not have to come back to ask for permission for a rate increase. It'll just go on a formula base that they pass one time. Their whole job is to pass utility rates for us. So if they're doing that, what's the purpose of the commission? So there's that. And then the last but not least is building resiliency for the future. I've spent the last decade in solar specifically. I'm not solar 100%, you know, that's all I believe in. I think we need to have all of our ducks in a row, but we should be using the cleanest, most affordable energy first, backfilling as we need. And right now it's the reverse. We lean into oil and gas, and then we maybe use solar. And they've also, this Corporation Commission has rolled back clean energy mandates. So all of these reasons, I want to have a better state for my kids and their kids and their kids, hopefully. And we're not on that trajectory right now. And I know Jonathon is in the same boat as I am. If you're not aware of his background, he's a NASA scientist. And I would say it shouldn't take a rocket scientist for us to fix our traffic. But if And his PhD is in geology. Might be kind of helpful to have someone who reads hydrology maps and understands the geology of the state. We don't have that expertise on the commission right now. We don't have anybody who can ask those hard questions of utilities. So I'm really excited to be running with Jonathon. And there's only two of us on the primary, so you can vote for both of us, fill in both little bubbles. And like so many have said, the further you go down the ballot, the closer to home it is. So I often tell people start from the bottom up, right? Because those down ballot races that people look at and go, I don't know. And I like to think as Democrats, maybe it's because we're a little bit more mindful. We won't vote straight party unless we really know the issue. And a lot of people just don't know about Corporation Commission. So that's where we need your help to educate your friends, your family, your neighbors. And in a state like Arizona, you might not know where your neighbors lie politically, but this is an easy office to have that conversation on because their rates are going up just as much as ours. There's no such thing as, liberal electricity or electricity. It all is the same. So it's a good starter conversation to be like, hey, did you know the Corporation Commission is actually, it's not APS. It's not the water company. It's the Corporation Commission. If you're not happy with it, you need to switch it out. All right. So thank you so much.
Quick question, does the commission scope reach beyond utilities at all?
Yes, that's a great question. It does. Yes, their primary role is the utilities, but it's infrastructure. So pipelines, they also do railroad safety, bridge crossings. They do the business regulatory as well. So if you want to start a business in the state of Arizona, you register with the Arizona Corporation Commission versus like Secretary of State. They also handle foreign financial transaction things that are happening within the state. So if an entity comes in as a foreign entity and is doing business in the state, it regulates some of that as well.
Right. Thank you.
So I'll let you kind of.
Okay, we are trying to get Jonathon back on. Apparently he had lost internet completely, so we're trying to get him back on. But why don't we just open the floor for questions?
I just had a question for Clara.
Oh, for Clara, why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? We recognize when somebody is new to.
I'm Jessica Burns. So we're actually from Payson, looking to move out of the area. Maybe it's pretty mega. So we've come up here. We actually lived in Flagstaff for a while, but we came up here just for the day, and we love hearing from all candidates. We wanted to come and listen to what they had to say. I just have a quick question for Clara and also actually for Terri. But Clara, does the Corporation Commission have much say-so over the data centers? Because that really is being
That's a great question. And it's interesting to show how much technology and business has changed even in a couple of years' time. Jonathon never got a question about data centers when he ran a couple of years ago. This is a new thing. There is some jurisdictional overlap with the Corporation Commission that whether or not it gets built in a specific area is usually the municipalities that deal with that issue. But the Corporation Commission has oversight over when a utility says, hey, let's take Project Blue, for example. We are going to build out an infrastructure line to this data center. The Corporation Commission, that's where they step in, is on the transmission and the infrastructure build out. Here's where you can use it as a bully pulpit. Okay, well, who's paying for that infrastructure? Is that going to be spread across all ratepayers? Is the data center itself going to be paying for it? And those are serious questions because the infrastructure itself is very expensive and it can get buried inside of budget items where they're talking about, no, we're building out infrastructure in general, right? So it artificially inflates everybody's bills to pay for one customer. And they can also say, well, at some point we might have customers coming off of these nodes here. But it's important that we know, are there customers there today? Is there actually a trajectory for customers to be out there? And how much is it going to cost ratepayers? What are you spreading across all of us? And we know in other states, I want to say Nebraska is the most recent that I looked at, where they have done data centers on a large scale, their utility rates for the consumers have really gone up because the utilities want the data centers. That is a cash cow for them. Yes. I ran a data center years previous life. My tribe had a data center and I was acting CEO over the entity. I used to get those $70,000 a bill per month for a small data center in Albuquerque. So that's why they love these data centers, because it's a cash cow for them. But there's environmental impacts, there's economic impacts, there's noise pollution, there's heat pollution, there's water issues. It goes on and on and on. So yes, sorry, long answer to your very good question.
Mama?
For Clara on the Corporation Commission. On the note of, public Wi-Fi and having connectivity, is internet something that the Corporation Commission has any authority over as a utility?
No, and they should. So we support Communication Workers of America Union's position on this issue. So both Jonathon and I have been endorsed by that union. It needs to be a regulated utility. Copper wire is currently semi-regulated, but the issue with internet is that it should be regulated. It's not, therefore we have lots of gaps in service. And driving down to Clifton and Safford, just trying to get a cell signal, in my house, I'm trying to get a cell signal. So, and out at my mom's, we put Starlink. Don't judge me. It's the only way we can get internet. But this is a real concern in many parts of rural Arizona, or especially in places where copper isn't available, or they've torn it up, or they don't maintain it. There are whole parts in Payson that can be without any telephone service or internet service or anything for days. My in-laws live in Payson, right on the main drag there, and the amount of times their internet service and regular telephone copper goes down is incredible. And they're in their 70s and 80s. They need to have connectivity. So yeah.
It's also important to note one thing that they have is they're going to have a major influence on how we generate electricity in the state. Sources, fossil fuels versus all the other cleaner ones. And Republicans, you might imagine where they lean. And they've recently taken off that mandate to have 20%
Yes.
by cleaner sources. And they said, we don't need to do that anymore. We don't have to have a mandate because we already do it anyhow.
But they don't.
And that could believe I read that. So they really have if you're interested in cleaner energy sources, they have big.
Well, we have a lot of sun here, so we should use it. So Thompson and Myers are the incumbents. He is the Turning Point candidate, and he's been recruited by MAGA because the two incumbents are not coal friendly enough. And they're plenty coal. So that's sort of, they're trying to move the needle even further. I'm doing this too. I need to do this. Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like Jonathon is back on. So why don't we hear from him, and then we'll continue with the questions.
There we go.
Hello.
Hey, Ellen, can you hear me now?
Back. We just discussed internet.
Yeah, I just dialed in time to hear that. So I think I froze before you heard anything I said. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Clara gave you the full rundown of what the Corporation Commission is, how important it is. I think the big takeaway is, like, of all the offices on the ballot, this office affects everyone so personally. Like, no shade on the other candidates, but like, how often does Katie Hobbs do something that like affects you personally, or like takes money out of your wallet, or stuff like that? This affects you every single month, all of you probably 3 times a month when all those bills hit. And so, the big thing I've been asking people is to just help us get the word out about how important it is, because, we've done unfortunately bad in this race over the years. And I think most of that is because people just don't know what it is. They don't feel comfortable voting for it. They don't want to make a mistake. And so they just leave it blank. And really, if you just, go talk to your neighbor, your friends, your family, if your bills have been going up, their bills have been going up just as much. And so we found it's a really good way to start a conversation with people, especially if you don't know exactly where they are politically. And hopefully I look familiar to some of you. I know I've met many of you before, but it sounds like there's some new faces in the crowd. So I did run for the commission 2 years ago in 2024. Obviously, we were not successful, but we learned so much from that race. And one of the big takeaways was that, we spent a lot of money on digital advertising and street signs and those glossy mailers that people, take from their mailbox and throw right in the trash. None of that really moved the needle. The thing that really moved the needle for us was just word of mouth. The counties, the legislative districts where we overperformed, it was where we had a really strong community presence helping us. And that's why I'm so glad that, that Ellen and Jeff are putting so much emphasis on this race this year. Because it's just neighbor talking to neighbor, and informing people about how important this race is. So just really quick, if I'm new to you, my background is not really in politics. This is only my second time running for office. The last 20 years of my career has all been in science and engineering. So I've worked the last 20 years at ASU on a number of NASA space missions. I've gotten to work on the cute little Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, that look like Wall-E from the Pixar movie. A couple asteroid missions, and now a mission that's on its way to Jupiter. I started out on the engineering side of those missions. My bachelor's and master's is in aerospace engineering. But over time, I really fell in love with the science we were doing. And most of that science is geology based. What are all these planets and moons and asteroids made out of? And so I actually switched tracks mid-career and got a PhD in geology. And so that's the expertise I really want to bring to the commission, an engineer's perspective, actually understanding how energy is generated, how water distribution systems work, but also the geology side, because in so many rural places in Arizona, we rely heavily on groundwater, and it's often the Corporation Commission deciding whether or not it's wise to continue pumping or to even increase pumping. And so I think having a geologist on the commission who can make informed decisions, actually look at the geologic maps, the hydrological surveys, and see where we can pump more, where we need to pull back, would be especially valuable. So thank you again for having us today. I apologize for not being in there in person. I think I'm already scheduled to come up. I think you have a picnic in the fall that I'm already scheduled to be at. So hopefully I'll get to see all of you there in person again.
Good, thank you. That's great. I'm glad you were able to get back on.
Yes.
On the program. Actually, all four of our guests will be here for the DORR candidate picnic on September 13th at the Hub. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's going to be terrific. So, and we will have others as well, but you'll hear more about that. Okay, great. What other questions do people have? We have Roz and okay, our patient friend has a lot of questions. You need to move here. Okay, Roz.
Hi, I'm Roz Britton and I live in Sedona Shadows.
Speak up.
Down the hill. And I have a question. Once you are able to control the budget with the money that's not going to waste, will you be able to reopen any of the elementary schools that are closing?
Gosh, that's such a great question. And it's unfortunate that the way the law has been written for the ESA vouchers, by the way, Tom Horn and Kimberly Yee are the architects of this voucher. So it's working exactly as they want it to work. The way it's written is they can stockpile the money. I can't bring that money back into the Department of Education unless the initiative passes. If the Protect Education initiative passes, there is language in there that would bring it back to any unused money. And right now there's like $350 million that's being stockpiled right now. $350 million, our taxpayer money, is being stockpiled. And it's also getting used to pay for higher education outside of Arizona, as well as inside of Arizona. This initiative, when we pass it, right, it would say any unused monies must go back to the Department of Education. And then there would have to be a big conversation of what that looks like, of how we can reallocate that out. I think that with schools closing, and they're closing all over Arizona, it's, I can imagine a world where we don't have overcrowded classrooms, where we have certified teachers in our classrooms, and where our classrooms start with all the necessary resources that they need to start a school year, rather than our teachers paying their own money to go buy the stuff that they need. And that's what I would like to see happen. Let's bring that money back. Let's put it back into public education.
Thank you. Just to clarify the process, the ballot initiative, it's a citizens initiative is what it's called. These petitions that are out on the table out in front here, one of them is to bring in these school vouchers. If there are enough signatures obtained, which is like 250,000 statewide, that petition puts it on everybody's ballot in November. So these petitions that we're passing around that our precinct committee people are taking door to door, those signatures go towards getting this put onto the ballot. So this is critical. There is, as you said, another ballot initiative. It's not an initiative, it's a referendum that came from the Arizona State Legislature. They passed it in the dead of night. They can pass things and it goes directly to the ballot. The voters don't have a say. It's not petitions. It goes right from the legislature to the ballot. And it would undo what this citizens initiative that we're getting the signatures for would do. So we need to be cognizant of that ballot again, and this is DORR's job. This is what we do. We educate our community, and we need your help to educate the community and your neighbors to tell them what the deal is. But sometimes it gets muddy.
It does, and that one in particular, I'm glad you brought that up, because that one, it's cowardice. It's hiding behind the children of our military families. And so when you first read it, you're like, oh yeah, let's protect our military, children. But within there, they call it the poison pill. And there's a subsection. It's diabolical and it's sneaky and it's genius. It's in there to confuse people and starts off with, protect the military children, but in there would undo the Protect Education Initiative.
Tell them what's in the Protect Education
The
Initiative.
Protect Education Initiative, first of all, puts a cap. First of all, it does not affect special education children. So children, the original intention was so that special ed kids with disabilities have the resources they need. Nobody wants to take monies away there. It's the universal vouchers that has just gone through the roof. And right now, roughly 80% of the ESAs are the universal vouchers with zero oversight, zero control. I'm sorry.
And all their moms commenting on Facebook all day.
Oh yeah, they're really mean to me, which is hilarious because
They're teaching their kids.
they're really mean, but that's okay. So it would put a cap. If you make over $150,000, then universal wouldn't apply to you. Any unused resources would go back to the Department of Education. You must be, you have to have a credential. You have to have background checks because again, who's teaching our children? And there must be assessments going back to that. We don't know what our children are learning and who's teaching them. And so I think the ones I'm mostly concerned about are the homeschool kids. I'm hearing this from colleagues in Alden, Arizona, a very red rural community. She's a principal at a charter school and her enrollment continues to decline because families are pulling their kids out to homeschool. We're seeing this, homeschool, Jessica said, homeschool. We're seeing this all over Arizona. And the concern is people are seeing dollar signs at the expense of their children's education. And so the Protect Education Initiative would put a lot of common sense guardrails that our Republican-led legislature refuses to put common sense, where other states, Ruby Red Texas and Florida, they have these common sense guardrails. So they don't want to do their job. So Citizens Unite, let's do it. Let's put it on the ballot and vote for it.
Are there any questions in the chat?
No. Let's see. Oh, yes, there is one. Does the Corporation Commission have any say in retrofitting warehouses to use as detention centers?
No, we don't. Jonathan, did you want to answer a question? But I'll start. There isn't a direct link between Corporation Commission and that, but if they register to do business in the state of Arizona, that information would go to the Corporation Commission. But unless they were doing something unlawful, you wouldn't be able to say yes or no.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no direct connection there. That's more your town councils, your city councils, maybe even county. But like Clara said, there's a whole part of the Corporation Commission that we didn't even get into today. It's such a complex sort of, it's almost like all the government responsibilities that were left over in 1912 got shoehorned into the Corporation Commission. But one of those is registering businesses. And so if any of these, private operators who are wanting to run these detention centers come into Arizona, they're going to have to register to do business in the state. And so the commission does have limited oversight of them in that capacity. Unfortunately, there's not more.
That's got a question back there.
You have a Basin person and then Jeff.
This is for Clara and Jonathon. When you two defeat the incumbent Republicans in November, it'll be a great start, but I've heard you discuss this before. Please tell us, but you'll still be in a 3-2 minority. Could you briefly explain, as that minority, what influence you can have on Corporation Commission policy and decisions?
Yes, we can answer together, but I'll do the first part, Jonathan. The Corporation Commission, one commissioner has subpoena power. And that was because when Sandra Kennedy was on the commission, she made that clarification happen. So even in the minority, the two of us can make a lot of really good trouble. Also, Jonathan, did you want to discuss the one member that votes against their party sometimes that we're going to try to make BFFs with?
Yeah, so there is one Republican commissioner who will be staying over. Her seat isn't up for election this year, and I hesitate to use the word reasonable, but kind of, at least compared to the others. And so I think there's some places where we could find common ground. But also, I keep telling everyone, like, think of 2026 on the Corporation Commission as a building year. Just like the Cardinals are perpetually in a building year. We're trying to lay a really good foundation. If we can get both of these seats in 2026, then when we come back in 2028, there will be 3 seats on the ballot, and all we have to do is get one of those. And then we'll have a voting majority for the first time in 32 years.
Ellen, there is another question in chat.
Okay.
Would there be consideration then in retrofitting a warehouse for increased water and utility use? Would the Corporation Commission regulate reuse of treated wastewater?
Yeah, yes, there would be some regulatory oversight on that, from the permitting perspective. So from the oversight perspective of how you're using that wastewater and mainly where it goes, like what happens to the affluent water once is it going to be closed cycle, or how are they dealing with it once it's done?
Right, thanks.
For Terri again,
Can you speak up?
oh, sure. How much oversight and accountability do you have? I work for a charter school, and they're great, but I know that a lot of charter schools, and also you mentioned homeschool, they can use any curriculum that they want. And like you said, they don't have to be certified teachers. They can actually teach that the earth is flat. And so how much accountability and oversight would you have as superintendent over the curriculum of these schools that aren't necessarily public schools?
Yeah. I would not have direct oversight, but I would use the office as the bully pulpit. If you go onto the Arizona Department of Education website right now, he lists all kinds of ridiculous curriculums that would all come down, and we would only be supporting, first of all, curriculum that matches the state standards. And second of all, there is no way absolutely possible that I would allow anything that resembles flat earth on the website. It is working with a state charter, like there's a state board of education. There is also a charter board of education. And so it's working closely with them as well. And I think really it's providing resources and highlighting and sharing so that Arizona citizens know exactly if taxpayer dollars are going, into the system without oversight, then you should also be aware of what is being taught. And that's, again, I didn't enter this race because, I was afraid of anything. I'm taught 7th grade math. So if it's sharing the right, proper information of what's happening in our education system, I'll share that. I'll be very transparent.
But then the legislature.
Turned around.
The deals.
They tried.
There's some more questions, I think, online.
Okay,
I have something.
Okay.
Just nobody else.
okay, Mayor Plume has a question.
Actually, it's not a question. It's actually bringing something home. So Arizona Water went to the Arizona Corporation Commission for a rate increase. And that's a normal process. In that rate increase, there was the cost for building the house that houses the big water tank on 179. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. That was very expensive. That was as a result of a lawsuit brought by the neighbors who wanted to challenge where the location of this water tank would be. So they decided to bury it. City had nothing to do with that. Planning and zoning had nothing to do with it other than approving it, but we didn't require it. The cost was in the multi-millions. And the Corporation Commission has a policy that they spread the costs across all the taxpayers in a particular jurisdiction. They have staff, and the staff recommends to the commissioners whether or not the rates should be increased and by how much. The staff recommended they continue the policy of spreading the costs across all the taxpayers in the region, which would include other communities besides Sedona. The administrative law judge also agreed with that. However, the commission decided on their own that those costs would be borne by Sedona ratepayers alone. I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
So the commissioner that Jonathon said was reasonable, and I'm not challenging that because I would say that it's all relative, happened to be in Sedona for an event a few months ago. And I said to this person, I won't even say male or female, we're mad at you because you really screwed the taxpayers of Sedona. And she sort of chuckled and said to me, I really want to see the house. Tell me where it is. Tell me how I can see it. She's really interested in looking at it. I said, well, I'll tell you where it is, but you probably won't even know that it's there because it looks like a house. Now, what the city did was we didn't want that increase, that total increase, because there's a lot of, high percentage to be borne by our taxpayers. So we forfeited the franchise fee that Arizona pays to us for the franchise of being able to serve our community. And we gave it back to Arizona Water consumers. It was 3%. Their increase was a lot higher, but we at least thought we could do something for our ratepayers. And that has to change. You can't just decide one day that a policy that you have and has been implemented and followed for a period of time should just be dismissed against staff recommendations and administrative law judge because you think Sedona can afford it. And it was a penalty against us. And that's got to change. So just bring it home to you of what this means to us. And now we have APS asking for a major increase, and we have some of these other things. So this is a really, really important positions. We really have to change the makeup. Commission.
So what can DORR do to help you? What can we all do to help you?
Oh, I think spread the word. Right. I think it's really spreading the word and helping people understand what exactly is at stake. And yes, everything comes back locally. So when we think of our children, we want to make sure that there's a certified teacher in their classroom. that they have the resources necessary so that they can be planning for their future. And that's where I see this position as superintendent of public instruction should be focused on preparing our students for the future. I think it's taking a yard sign, spreading the word. It's, if you want to volunteer for the campaign, wonderful. If you'd like to host a gathering at your home, that would be wonderful. We'll all three will come together. That's all on this, right?
You may even invite Jonathan.
Well,
I would add, because everything she's saying is absolutely right. The treasurer. So I guess I get to talk about this. A race like this ultimately comes down to, can you get the word out and can you get people paying attention to it? And, it's not like a state representative race where there's a lot of knocking on doors. So I'm going to knock on doors. I'm sure you're going to knock on doors. I can't knock on the whole state's doors. So, it really does come down to, can you advertise enough to get the word out there? Somebody mentioned earlier, Tom Horn's advertising. I suspect Kimberly E's advertising. Both of the two Republicans running for treasurer are advertising. And ultimately, not to be too crass, but that comes down to money. And so, if you're able to give, or you have friends that are able to give, please do so. Please introduce us. We'll make the case. And I hate to be about just the money, but everything you're saying is right. And yet it's a statewide race and it takes advertising. And I don't even want to tell you how many hours I spend on the phone calling people.
Right.
All right. And calling people that I do know and I don't know. And this really is public service. I am doing this full time. You're doing this full time. You're doing this a lot of your time. We're giving in lots of ways, but we need everybody's help and not just knocking on doors. So I'll finish on that. That's not the popular message, but that's the truth. So.
Co-sign on all of that. And if you're interested it's interesting the way Arizona clean elections work. So Jonathon and I are running as clean elected candidates, which means we did the fives, we got the seed money, we got that portion down, but we're still able to collect seed money up until the primary, which is a maximum of $220 per Arizona registered voter. And you can do that on ActBlue. You can go to hillforaz.com or claraforaz.com. There's a handy little button there that'll take you to the ActBlue. If you're familiar with ActBlue and you just put our names in, they'll pop up. But that's only up until the primary, and we have to raise it and spend it by the primary. So it's going to be super fun. Yeah, but what's really cool is that you can do things like evergreen stuff, like some of the signs. You can do things like that, and it helps you build a base before that clean elections money comes in. Because right now, and I think it's just recently hit the clean elections money. So, but before then, we're just sort of winging it on a hope and a prayer that we get that clean elections money. But thankfully, we'll pass the test for that. Thanks.
There was a question and an answer in the chat. So if we can.
Yes.
We have left? Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
Actually, there are two questions. Let me start with the one for the Corporation Commission. Will the Corporation Commission have a say in making plug-in solar legal in Arizona? Jonathon, you responded in chat, but would you like to respond yourself?
Yeah. So the short version is that they would sort of have a role. So to fully make, plug-in solar above the board and legal and everything, the legislature would need to pass a bill to that effect. But the Corporation Commission, if they signaled their support for it, I think that would remove a lot of roadblocks. On the other hand, if it's the current commission that we're dealing with, they're going to do the opposite, and they're going to put up a whole bunch of roadblocks. They're going to add fees. Actually, just this week, there was a court case that found that the current commission illegally put additional fees on solar customers, even though APS never even asked for them. The commission just single-handedly decided to penalize solar users. And that's like you heard, about the water tower, the water house. This current commission just keeps going way outside their bounds. And unfortunately, because of how powerful they are, the only oversight over them is the voters. The governor can't really step in. The legislature can't. The courts can only step in rare cases. It's the voters that have to hold them accountable. So.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. One other question is about home rule. If home rule fails in Sedona, Where does the money collected from tourism go? How would it be used?
I'll answer that. It goes to the bank and it can't be used. It sits in the bank unusable by the city for any reason other than an emergency like a flood or a fire or something like that. Otherwise, it just sits there. And by the way, we already have $100 million in the bank. Do you think we need more? You don't know. I mean, that's enough to fund an entire year's worth of a budget without one more penny. We're so conservative with our spending. So, Tony, want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, home rule is an absolute necessity for us to vote on. Probably everybody in this room already understands that.
Tony is a candidate for the city council.
We could call him also a football coach. I think yeah, we have to have a vote in home rule. The city council has done such a great job. Over the last 4 years, they put $58 million into our rainy day fund. At the same time, they've fully funded the police pension fund, and they paid down some high interest rate debts that we had. If that's not responsible fiscal policy, I don't know what is. We can trust them with our tax dollars to spend it correctly, to improve our citizens' experience. I mean, if you look back and remember what it was like to drive down from Flagstaff on a Saturday, you hit about the Terri, and you're stuck there for an hour and a half before you could get to Uptown. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because of changes that they've made. We have the O&B Road bypass. We have now Forest Road extension. We've got the 2 lanes coming southbound through Uptown. All of those things together have improved our traffic situation. And those of us that have been here for a while, we know how much better it is than what it used to be, right? And there's further capital improvements that we can do to get more cars off the road to improve it even more, like building out our shuttle system. That's already begun. They're probably halfway through that process right now. And if we can increase the frequency and increase the geographic space that the shuttles handle, we can then ask the hotels, hey, you tell your customers when they come and they stay in these hotels that you can park your car and take shuttles everywhere you need to go, to businesses, points of interest, to trailheads. And all of that makes our lives better. But those kinds of things, building Forest Road extension, expanding our shuttle system, all of that comes from this money that Home Rule is going to give us. And so to see them continue the good work that they've already done and to continue our experience as residents, we need that money. It's just that simple.
Yeah. No, we're going to play that video again. I forgot to add at the beginning, DORR is sponsoring one of the ads in the Red Rock News. We wanted names of citizens because that's what people trust. People trust their neighbors. And we have over 200 signatures on that ad, which will be placed soon. It's going to run 3 times in the Red Rock News. So that is really awesome. Before I close things out, I didn't mention one of the candidates. I didn't mention Tony because I didn't see him. But at the bottom of our ballot is the school board. Karen McClellan is here. Thank you. McClellan's here, who has been on our school board serving loyally for many, many years. You know, past president of DORR. Thank you, Karen, for all of your service. And that race is not on the primary. That's going to happen on the November 3rd ballot. And we also have Sandy Zalecki, who is running for the state legislature from LD1. Remember, our legislative district, LD1. So thank you for being here, Sandy.
Yes. I was at that thing that the
Farm Bureau.
Farm Bureau. I was impressed by Terri because she was the only one that mentioned that she cares about our kids. I think that if you're running for education, you want to care, somebody that care about our kids, yeah. I am having, a meet and greet with Jonathan Nez and with Christine Dargan on July the 17th from 3:30 to 5:30 at the Cotton Library. So
All
if
right.
anybody's interested, I've got cards out there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Good. Thank you. We've got a lot of stuff happening. This is go time. This is it. This is why we're here. And it's talking to your neighbors that really makes the difference. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here with us via Zoom, the miracle of Zoom. We are going to continue the fight. You're going to get your ballots, come to the ballot review party. And there's something else in my brain I know I wanted to mention, and I will remember it as soon as we leave. But seriously, thank you all for being here, and stay in touch. Oh, we will have, June 30th, the 30th of every month is a gathering of people that are like-minded, just like us. And we don't have an agenda. It is not a meeting. We sit, we talk, we schmooze, we eat pizza, we eat salad. So June 30th, come to the open door and meet with friends. So thank you.